Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we uncover what it really takes to lead change, create value, and build what's next. I'm JL Heather. Preston wasn't able to join me today, but together we lead Centered, a firm that helps organizations navigate complexity, spark creativity, and unlock the full potential of their teams through innovation, coaching, and strategy. Today's guest sits at the intersection of innovation, business, and law, a place most founders know they need, but few understand how to really navigate. So we're thrilled to welcome Jeff Holman, founder of Intellectual Strategies, where he's reinvented how startups are scaling businesses and accessing legal and strategic guidance through his fractional legal team model. Jeff's career uniquely blends engineering, law, and business strategy, giving him a rare ability to translate between technical, legal, and entrepreneurial worlds. For over 2 decades, he's helped companies from garage startups to Fortune 100 innovators bring new products to life while protecting what makes them special. He's also known for his 5 factor framework for business strategy and 4 fears of innovators, which are simple but powerful tools to help leaders move from hesitation to confident action. Jeff, I'm not sure innovators have just 4 fears, but I think it's worth diving into. So, welcome to the show. I'm excited to get to know you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here, JL. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So I won't lie, you've got one of the more multi-dimensional backgrounds that we've seen, engineer, attorney, MBA, entrepreneur. You've probably got a couple other in your back pocket when you need them as well. How did that combination come together? And maybe tell us a little bit about how it shapes the way you approach innovation and business strategy.
Yeah, no, I wish I could say that there was a plan up front and I followed that plan and here I am. It's not like that. I'm like a lot of my clients. They're innovators and they are exploring new things. They're always learning new things. And so when I finished my engineering degree, I always kind of knew I wanted to go into business, but law came up and people are like, you should be a patent attorney with your engineering. So I did that for a while and it led me on this detour. And then I came back around and got my MBA. And so it's been a really winding journey, but it's been a lot of fun. There's been some ups and downs like everybody, but it's suited me really well. I don't know that I could fit into a big law firm anywhere or maybe any other big corporate structure because I don't think that way. I don't behave that way. I'm a little bit of I call myself a maverick or maybe a trailblazer. It's been a good journey and it's a good mix. And really for the people I work with and probably the people you work with, they need, they're kind of on the edge of things, right? They're exploring new things, inventing new things, building new brands. They kind of need somebody who's comfortable enough with the chaos that exists out on the edges
Yeah.
and being able to draw off a little bit from business, a little bit from law, maybe from engineering, maybe from some of my own business experiences. We tend to relate pretty well.
And that's great. And I think that kind of concept of being a lifelong learner, charting your own path, that resonates a lot because I think a lot of people are comfortable in their career path, but I think there's a good group of people that really thrive on that ability to kind of create their own path. So I love that. That said, I am very curious. You mentioned the 4 fears of innovators. I'd love to hear more about that, what they are, and kind of what you see in how they show up in real life.
Yeah. No, it's a great topic, and we mentioned before, you and I, before the show, there might be more than 4 fears, but I distilled it down a little bit because I've worked with innovators for a long time, inventors for, the first 10 or 15 years of my career. And you see a lot of people who they're passionate about their invention. It's their baby. They don't want anybody to call it ugly. And then sometimes they get stalled bringing that baby into reality, right? And it's an understandable thing. It's a little bit of a sad thing because people love their invention so much, but they can't quite release it into the world. So as I did that, I talked with some of the inventors and some of the groups I'm in. I said, hey, what is it? What are the reasons that maybe get stalled out, that you don't actually push forward? Because I see this on the legal side.
Yeah.
People come in and I don't like it because it contributes to the idea that, oh, legal is just an expense and it's not worth it. Well, if you pay, tens of thousands of dollars for a patent, but then you never actually try to bring your product to market, I can agree 100%. That's a very much a waste of funds and time and effort. And I don't want that any more than, inventors want that. And so being stalled out's a problem. Anyway, so as I did this, I went to a group one time. I said, hey, tell me what the top fears are that you deal with as an inventor. Like, what is it that stops you? And the number one thing was the fear of the unknown. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. A lot of
Yeah.
people, I don't know what to do next. And so, so they just don't do anything. Okay, we've seen that.
Paralysis.
The next one was fear of loss. And this is maybe generalized version. Like they're afraid of losing something. Maybe it's their reputation, maybe it's, spending money unwisely, but there's just this concept of loss that probably breaks down into a dozen other subcategories. One of those subcategories is large enough on its own that I put it as the third fear, and that is fear of theft. This is a common topic you hear among inventors. Someone's going to steal my invention. I don't want them to, I don't want to tell anybody about it. And it's, if it's such a good invention, you should tell people about it, but you talk yourself out of it because you don't want anyone to
Right.
steal what you've got. So that's the third one. And then the fourth is kind of a catch-all category. It's not catch-all. It's kind of a counterintuitive category, I should say. It's fear of success. So there are
Mm,
people out there who literally say, well, what if it does go big? Then what? Then I've got to raise money. I've got to make a bigger commitment to this thing and make it part of my life. Might have to, is it going to interrupt what I do in my personal schedule? Is it going to, I've heard these horror stories of people starting businesses and then they get divorced because they can't manage. Like there's this aspect of success and what comes with success. I think it kind of comes full circle back to the unknown. Like I haven't had that level of
yeah.
success. I'm not sure if I could handle it or and so all of these different categories of fear, call them four, call them 40, right? These categories of fear, what they really do is they stop people from taking action. They're like, you know what? I can sit in my room or my garage and I can tinker and I can think about stuff, but I just can't quite get myself to take the next step, to take action. So those are the four fears.
Well, and it's not even just it stops them from taking the right action. Sometimes it actually promotes the wrong action. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
like, that fear of theft was the first one that really jumped out at me because I think so many innovators have that fear that they need to keep it secret. They don't go and talk to customers in the way
Yeah.
they should. They don't validate in the way they should, which sets them up for failure down the road. The fear of success, that one, I didn't see that one coming. And I love it because I think a lot of people are scared of what happens. Like, how do I grow? How do I scale? Will I lose control? And I think that points to a need not just for the fractional legal support, but also just how do you get the right people involved in the right way?
Yeah.
And I think, there's probably a role for legal in that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Legal and other mentors, I think it's great to have somebody, and I talk to my clients about this and other audiences, and I say, hey, listen, many of you are first time founders, but you need to be able to think like a second time founder
Right.
because a second time founder has been around the corner. They've seen around the hill. They've been over the mountain, whatever analogy you want to use. They've seen a little bit further down the road than you've been. And
Yeah.
whether you're afraid of, loss, theft, unknown, or success because you haven't seen it before, find somebody who's seen it. Find somebody who
Right.
can maybe hold your hand and guide you through it a little bit. And that might be legal. Your legal team has probably seen that a lot of times.
Yep.
Your finance team has probably seen that a lot of times. Finance
Yeah.
and legal sit in the background and we're just these cost centers sometimes, but we're really, really, a window into the future, if you will. But then if you're not comfortable with with really formal relationships like that yet, find somebody who's been down that path before. There are lots of inventors.
Oh yeah.
Get on Shark Tank and be like, oh, I'd love to reach out to her or him. Find them on LinkedIn, send them a note and say, hey, I'm just starting this path. And I'd love to, what's it really like? Is this really an
Yeah.
issue I have to deal with? But find somebody who's seen behind the curtain or around the corner where you're trying to go.
Well, and I think most founders are pretty happy to talk to first-time founders, other founders. I found that it's a pretty social group. But you
Yeah.
said something where about legal as a cost center, and you hinted a little bit at one way that it isn't. But I think that that's a huge one as well because I hear it over and over from the startup industry. I'm afraid to spend money on legal. Like they see the cost, they see a little bit of the risk mitigation, but they don't see the value center part of it. So how do you help people see that legal isn't just a cost?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd be able to go to you and say, "Hey, listen, you spend this $10,000 and you're gonna get $100,000 back." It
Right.
doesn't work there's not that direct connection. We're not the sales team. We don't bring in
Yeah.
revenue next month. But it ties in really well with another framework that I use, which is the 5-factor framework
Right.
for business strategy. Because I think that in order to see how to use legal or other cost centers in your journey as something to build ultimate value, you have to be able to see the big picture, which means
Right.
you have to actually see where you're headed a year or 5 years or 10 years down the road. What are you building? What does your position look like? And now you're talking about what is the strategy that I'm going to adopt, the one that fits my business specifically and uniquely and positions me as the leader in some market segment with the type of product or service I'm offering. Like all of that comes together, and you know, it's a process to be able to figure that out. But once you can see down the road, and it's not, this isn't just a vision statement where you're like, well, I spent 10 minutes and yeah, I want to make $1 million next year. Or I want to, the one we hear all the coaches say, I want to create 1,000 millionaires by 2028 or whatever. Like
Right.
that's fine. That's totally fine. That's a vision. It's a vision statement. It doesn't have any strategy around it. What's the strategy to do that? And there's factors to look at. And when you start to say, you know what, I am like I've seen the pieces of what I can be 5 years from now, all of a sudden I know that legal, yes, there's an expense to it, but legal fits in because it's how I create and control and deploy valuable resources at the right time and stage to build my leadership position for a sustainable advantage in a competitive market. Like it all kind of comes together
Yeah.
that way.
No, and I'm willing to bet, the second fear of scale, I think it's hard to scale well without someone with a legal mindset helping you
Oh,
out.
yeah, scaling, I mean, scaling's so difficult. In fact, I've been through scaling, I'm going through scaling, I work with people going through scaling, so I've seen both sides of it, or maybe all sides of it, or most sides of it. I don't know if I could ever say all sides. I've seen a lot of sides of it. And it's, scaling is hard because you've gotta scale the business, which is kind of this thing that sits in parallel with the team. You've gotta scale the
Yeah.
team, and then, I talked with a founder recently about how he had to scale himself, and a lot of people aren't able to actually scale themselves. And I don't mean like delegate and duplicate, like I mean like literally scale your core skill set into what it needs to be for a bigger
Right.
team, for a different team, for scaling yourself, I think is the hardest part. And
Right.
I haven't thought of it that way, but the four fears come into play there too. Like, man, if I change what I'm doing, am I disrupting this? And am I going to lose revenue for a time? Am I
Yeah.
my part of my market going to leave? That
Giving up control.
yeah, yeah, giving up control. That that is probably a fifth fear that should be there if we're talking about
Yeah.
CEOs.
At least on the scale side. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, scaling introduces all the same things. Scaling is you're building something that didn't exist, and you want to build it off what you have, but what you have isn't necessarily always the thing that naturally grows into what you want. The same way as an invention. Sometimes you're like, oh, I had this idea, I'm going to do this thing. By the time you get to market, it's a different thing. Oh, it goes to a different market. You've refined it to actually make sense
Yeah.
and be viable in the marketplace. And so it's become a different invention than what you intended, but it's a better thing. It's one that will actually work. Same with your scale. So there's parallels though. I like that you brought that up.
And then if someone is looking to work with you or get some fractional legal support, like what does that look like? How does that happen?
Yeah, people usually come to us. We work on some transactional things or project by project things, because we have so many garage inventors and startups, and people going making that manufacturing their first product. They can't afford us on an ongoing basis yet. The
Right.
fractional legal team is really a model that's meant to be collaborative in alignment with our clients. Because how many times have you heard, I don't want to call my attorney, he's going to bill me 15 minutes. Or there's, as attorneys, we've created the number one obstacle for people hiring us because they don't want to call us because we've set up a business model that makes it
Right.
like kind of penalizes people from calling us to hire us. There's some
Yeah.
weird blockade there that we've done to ourselves. I don't like it. I don't think it should be there. I don't think it's good for our clients. So the fractional legal team model is really, we've collected a team of attorneys who cover essentially all the things that an innovative client will need as they're going from the 0 to 1 stage and then the 1 to scale stage. And we just say, come to us with everything. We will be on a retainer that matches what your budget and your needs are, right? As you scale up, we'll scale with you. And we can
Right.
scale over a long period of time because we have, most companies when they scale, they start, they're like, I need a patent, or I
Right.
need this contract, or I'm gonna get a safe and raise some money. There's like one thing in one area of law. But as you get bigger, all of a sudden you're like, man, I've got that thing from 2 months ago I was supposed to do. Somebody threatened to sue us. I offered stock options to this employee, but I don't have stock options yet. Have this partnership opportunity. And all of a sudden you have like 7 different areas of law where you're like, I don't even know who to hire. And I don't want to hire a single attorney, let alone go out and try to hire 6. Right.
Right.
And so this is really meant to eliminate the bottlenecks, eliminate the constraints on hiring attorneys. If you find a good team, and we think we're a good team, if you find a good team to work with that can actually cover the breadth of things that you need
Yeah.
and scale with you over time, like that feels to me like now we're just effectively the legal team sitting down the hallway from you. And when you have a
Right.
question, you pop your head in the door of one of the attorneys, whichever attorney is doing the thing you're working on, and be like, hey, Jeff, hey, Trevor, hey, Ross, I've got this question. What should we do? What should we be thinking about? So it feels more collaborative. It's the same type of thing that I saw when I was in-house with a company.
Yeah.
People weren't like, I'm not, well, maybe some people were like, don't go to Jeff. He's going to tell us we can't do that. But for the most part, people are like, hey, just go ask Jeff real quick. Let's see what he thinks, right? Let's go
Yeah.
do this. And I got questions across the board on all different things. And so it feels like you're empowering business to happen in that scenario rather than inhibiting
Right.
conversations that should happen so that business happens the right way. I don't know if I
Awesome.
explained that well, but it's really a team model. So we're essentially your fully staffed in-house team for scaling startups and scaling companies.
So, I mean, I think that makes really great sense. If someone wants to work with you, how should they reach out?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I love messages on LinkedIn. And we also, for all of our potential clients, we do a free 30-minute strategy call. People can get onto our website, which is intellectualstrategies.com. And you can see our calendar and book a call. I love those first calls because it's kind of like, okay, tell me what you're working on. What's the cool thing you're building? A
Yeah.
platform or a whatever. What are you building? Now tell me about, what are some of the messes you've made along the way that might need to be cleaned up? But more importantly, where are you headed 6, 12, 18 months down the road? What are those big
Right.
milestones in your business? Not the legal things. We'll take care of matching up legal things to business milestones. But what are the
Right.
business milestones? When are you hiring? When are you're getting your dev team on board, launching your app, or you're, engaging a manufacturer in China, like whatever it is, what is happening? What are the big things? And then let's match up the legal stuff that goes with it so that you have not only know what to do when it comes up, but you like have a heads up, like this
Right.
is what's going to happen 9 months from now, more or less.
I
That's
love
yeah.
it.
Those strategy calls are fun.
I love it, Jeff. I mean, that sounds exactly like what a lot of innovators need. I want to thank you for your time today because we are out of time.
Yeah.
For everyone else who made it all the way to the end with us, while you're down there leaving that 5-star review, we'd love to hear you. What are your legal concerns? What are the things that really concern you as a innovator, as a startup, as a business owner from a legal perspective that you feel like you've just never gotten the right support on? I think it'd be really interesting to have a discussion. And if you know anyone who needs legal support but maybe doesn't know how to get it, pass them this episode, introduce them to Jeff, and share the wealth. That said, Jeff, thank you again so much for the time. This was a great conversation on a topic I think everyone needs to know more about. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.